The Premier League is arguably the biggest league in Europe, and over the years we have seen some real greats grace the league. Today, we want to look at the greatest of the greats and rank them. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the best players in Premier League history. You'll be shocked by the top 3. Let the countdown begin. In number 15 is Nemanja Vidic. For most of his time in the league, Vidic was the outright best defender, and on several occasions he was the outright best player. He won 5 Premier League titles, was named in the PFA Team of the Year 4 times, and won the Premier League Player of the Season award twice. Vidic was the first defender to win the Player of the Season award, and remains the only defender who has won it twice. But of course, he's not the only defender on this list. Do you know what other defenders make this list? Tell me in the comments. We'll see if you're right later. Anyway, to number 14, we have Cantona. Cantona was just pure magic. He's not the kind of player you judge by numbers. You have to watch him play and see the quality of the goals he scores to understand why he deserves to be here. He won 4 Premier League titles, was named PFA Players Player of the Year once, and finished 3rd at the Ballon d'Or while playing in the Premier League. Like I said, special. Another exceptional player is Petr Cech in number 13. Perhaps the most outstanding goalkeeper the Premier League has ever seen. He won 4 Premier League titles and holds several Premier League records. Most Premier League Golden Gloves, fewest appearances to reach 100 clean sheets, most clean sheets in a single season, fewest goals conceded in a single season, and most clean sheets in the history of the Premier League. He's also the only goalkeeper to win the Golden Glove with 2 different clubs, doing it with both Chelsea and Arsenal. In number 12 is another record holder, Ryan Giggs. He's the player who has won the most Premier League titles in history, and the only player who was there for every single one of Man United's Premier League successes. Giggs is also the player with the most assists in the history of the Premier League, the only player to have played in 22 successive Premier League seasons, and the only player to have scored in 21 seasons. He was the first player to reach 100 Premier League goals for Man United, and he's one of only a handful of players with over 100 goals and over 150 assists in the Premier League. Number 9 might really shock you, so brace yourselves for it. But first, let's talk about Sergio Aguero in number 11. He won 5 titles, memorably helping Man City win their first ever Premier League title in his first season at the club with his iconic goal in the very last second of the season. Aguero won 1 Golden Boot, holds the record for most hat-tricks in Premier League history, sits in the top 5 of all-time top scorers, and guess what? Of the top 5, Aguero is the player with the best goal-to-game ratio. He holds the joint record for most consecutive seasons, scoring more than 20 goals, and is also the highest-scoring foreigner in Premier League history. This guy is a proper legend for coming all the way from South America to dominate England the way he did. Now, are you ready for the top 10? In number 10 is Paul Scholes. He's regarded as one of the greatest midfielders of his generation, and you just had to watch him to see why. He spent 19 years playing in the Premier League and won 11 titles, making him one of the players with the most Premier League titles won. Scholes currently sits in the Premier League Hall of Fame, and you have to say he certainly deserves it. Now, are you ready for number 9? It's Cristiano Ronaldo. No doubt he is one of the greatest players in football history, but if we're looking at his time in the Premier League, then there are a few players greater. Ronaldo spent 7.5 years in the Premier League, and boy were they magical. He won 3 titles and 2 Player of the Season awards, but more importantly, he had one of the greatest seasons in Premier League history. Ronaldo swept all the awards in the 2007 to 2008 season: Premier League Player of the Season, Golden Boot, PFA Player of the Year, European Golden Shoe, and the big one, the Ballon d'Or. But even with a CV this good, Ronaldo is not United's greatest player in Premier League history. Who's greater than him? Tell me in the comments. We'll find out if you're correct soon. But let's first look at number 8, John Terry. Arguably the greatest defender and captain in Premier League history. He won 5 titles, all of them as captain, making him the captain who has lifted the most Premier League trophies. Terry made the PFA Team of the Year 4 times and was named PFA Player of the Year once. He's also the defender with the most goals and most clean sheets in Premier League history, so he was brilliant in front and at the back. In number 7 is Steven Gerrard. He was named in the PFA Team of the Year 7 times and won both the PFA Player and Young Player of the Year awards. He also sits in the top 10 for most assists in Premier League history, while scoring 120 goals from the midfield. Crazy. But he's more than just the numbers, you know. He was an exemplary leader and did things no one else could do. He'd probably be higher on this list if he had won even one title. But I'll tell you right now, there's a Liverpool player higher than Gerrard on this list. Can you tell me who it is in the comments? We'll come to that soon, but let's look at number 6, Frank Lampard. He won 3 Premier League titles and also won the PFA Player of the Year, Premier League Player of the Season, and FWA Footballer of the Year awards. He finished as the top assist provider in the league on 3 different occasions and was named in the PFA Team of the Year 3 times. Lampard is the highest scoring midfielder in Premier League history. He sits in the top 6 for all-time goals and in the top 5 for all-time assists in the league. There's a reason he's called Super Frankie. What couldn't he do? It's now time for the top 5, and it's Alan Shearer who ushers us in. He's the player with the most goals in Premier League history. Need I say more than that? He won 1 league title, 3 golden boots, 1 Premier League Player of the Season award, and was named in the PFA Team of the Year 6 times. No wonder he was the first player to be inducted into the Premier League Hall of Fame. He's a proper legend. In number 4, we have an active legend, Mohamed Salah. For all he has done, he certainly deserves to be in the top 5. 1 Premier League title, 2 golden boots, 2 PFA Player of the Year awards, 1 Playmaker of the Season award, and he has been named in the PFA Team of the Year 3 times. Salah currently sits at number 8 in the list of all-time top scorers and number 11 for all-time assists in Premier League history. And he could realistically climb higher before he leaves. And guess what? He has managed all this in less than 10 years in the league. What a player. Now, ushering us into the top 3 is Wayne Rooney, Man United's greatest ever Premier League player. He won 5 titles, 1 Premier League Player of the Season, 1 PFA Player of the Year, and 2 PFA Young Player of the Year awards. He's the only player with over 200 goals and over 100 assists in Premier League history, and also the only player in the top 5 of both all-time goals and assists in the Premier League. Rooney holds the record for most away goals in Premier League history, as well as most goals in Manchester derbies, one of which is up there as one of the greatest goals in Premier League history. This guy was truly extraordinary. And number 2 is another notable player, Kevin De Bruyne. He has won 6 titles, been named in the Premier League Team of the Season 5 times, and named Premier League Player of the Season a joint record 2 times. He's also the player with the most Premier League Playmaker of the Season awards, and in fact, the only player with more than 1. And he holds the joint record for most assists in a single Premier League season. On top of all of that, De Bruyne sits in number 2 for most assists in Premier League history. But what's really crazy about all of this is that for everything I've mentioned, he could still finish with more before he leaves. Honestly, this guy might retire as the greatest player in Premier League history if he stays for a few more seasons. But right now, that title belongs to Thierry Henry. He won the Premier League twice. One of them was invincible, but it was really more than that. He's won a record 4 golden boots, a record 3 FWA Footballer of the Year awards, and a joint record 2 Premier League Player of the Season and 2 PFA Player of the Year awards. He also won 2 European Golden Shoes and finished 2nd and 3rd at the Ballon d'Or while playing in the Premier League. Henry is the player with the most goals in London derbies in Premier League history, holds the joint record for most consecutive seasons scoring more than 20 goals, joint record for most assists in a single season, and is the only player who has managed more than 20 goals and more than 20 assists in a single Premier League season. He's also in the top 10 for all-time goals in the league. But even with all these numbers and accolades, you still needed to watch Henry to appreciate his greatness fully. His skill, speed, finishing, dribbling, creativity, and technical superiority make him the greatest player in Premier League history. Now I know some of you might have a problem with my list, so this is your time to air your grievances. Get in the comments and tell me if there's anything you'd change about this list of the best players in Premier League history. While you're there, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel.
Hello for Garnacho!